Hi everybody, Bill Mues, Friends of Liberty United, and I'm real excited to have our guest here today, Gene Schmidt, our state representative from the 62nd District. And with me is Charles Tassell. He's the new chairman of the Republican Party here in Clermont County. Wanted to take a few minutes and go over some things with Charles as he is the new chairman, and let him know what's on his thoughts, his mind, and what he plans on doing. Charles?
Well, thank you, Bill. Appreciate the opportunity to come here today. Really interested in, and it's an honor to be able to serve. This isn't just, we have the Central Committee, which we serve, but also speaking on behalf of Republicans in the county, and really being able to take our voice in party terms to Columbus level and even moving it to federal level, and how we can engage. And that also means, you know, we're open. If you're a Republican and you want to get involved in Clermont County, please get in touch with us. Our headquarters is in Batavia. We've got phone numbers, websites, it's all there. Please come check us out. We welcome the participation.
Good, good. And we're excited to have you. We're looking for great things. And with that being said, I want to discuss, and I asked Gene and Charles on the show today to discuss issue 1. Folks, there is so much confusion on this. And I listened to Gene explain it to somebody the other day. And Gene, I think you could explain it to my 4-year-old granddaughter and she'll understand. It's very important, and I believe it has been set up to confuse people. So I was at the county fair the other day, and everybody that was coming into the headquarters was, what do I do about issue 1? What do I do about issue 1? Well, the first thing is read it. But I've invited Gene here as well as Charles, and let's get into this and let's figure out what is right, what is wrong, where are we in this, Gene? Let's just start from there.
Well, thank you. You know, our Constitution is a precious document. Our founding fathers with the U.S. Constitution made sure that it was brief and that it was hard to change. In Ohio, our forefathers thought we should make it easier to change. The issue is this: when you change the Constitution, the legislature in Ohio cannot tweak it, adjust it, change it, expand it. It is in concrete. And right now in Ohio, to change the Constitution, you need signatures in 44 out of 88 counties. We have 88 counties. 88 voices should be heard when you are putting something into the Constitution to be enshrined forever. The second thing in Ohio today is if you make a mistake and don't have enough signatures, you get an opportunity after you put them and presented them to the Secretary of State to have a do-over, to have more time, as in the recreational marijuana that is all likely to get on the ballot in November. They didn't have enough signatures at the deadline, they can go capture more. I, as a candidate, if I turn in my petition, I don't have enough signatures, I'm not on the ballot. And the third is to raise the threshold for passage from 50% to 60%. And why do we need that? Well, our founding fathers, it's 66%. Most states, it's at least 60, if not higher. We're one of the easiest states in the nation to change it. And again, if you're going to put something in the Constitution, remember, we can't change it. Those things should be in the things that are in the Constitution should be there for a reason, not because we want a social experiment.
Well, I want to comment on that. I think there's 2 points there really just to re-hit. One is that signature piece. Everybody should be treated the same. If you're turning in ballots, if you're turning in signatures, you got to make sure you qualify. That's it. No do-overs, no, oh, oops, go get some more. That's a one-time shot, and that should be consistent across the board for issues as well as candidates. The second piece is we are a we always call ourselves a democracy. We're actually a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. Now, do we vote on things? Yes, but we actually have good folks like you who go and vote on all those and read through all those pages and pages of documents to get to it. And what I love about issue 1 is you're talking a one-page simple document that says, here's what we're going to do. And there have been efforts out there to really conflate, confuse, and just mess with people on what it really is. And I think you summarized it very quickly into those 3 points. And really raising the standard from 50% to 60% still isn't even as high as the federal level.
Right.
But it does give a threshold there to say, if we're going to change these things, they need to be serious. More of us need to be involved. I think about it when you're bringing in a pastor. If you're bringing in a pastor and you only get 50% of the vote, the congregation probably shouldn't be bringing in that pastor. As compared to when you do something and go, you know what, we're going to get 75, 80, 85%. That's really, you want people cohesive on that. And when you're talking about a constitutional republic and you're changing your core documents, you need to make sure we've got really consistent thought on that and that we've all agreed to that and not just swayed by outside money. You know, it could be a variety of billionaires that are weighing in, Hollywood weighing in to conflate and confuse, or an example with the casinos.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, in the Constitution, they put in the parcel numbers for the 4 pieces of property where a casino monopoly can go. And by the way, legislature, you don't get to comment on it.
We can't change that, Charles. You're absolutely right. Because people say to me all the time, why can't such and such area get a casino? Because our Constitution says it is only 4 parcels in the state of Ohio that can have a casino. When it was put up for a vote, the public didn't understand that. Had they understood that, I don't think they would have gotten 50% to say yes, because that's an issue, again, of fairness. But once again, once you put it in the Constitution, once you enshrine it, I can't adjust it.
Right. There's no changes at all. And that's where I think, I appreciate Friends of Liberty taking the time to do this, because this is so important for everybody to have the opportunity to really look at it. And kind of to your point, read the bill. And when you go to vote, there's an opportunity to read it. Even if you're doing an absentee ballot, you'll have the language there. And it's straightforward and simple to read and avoids a lot of the confusion that's out there on the radio and the television. Stay focused on just simply reading the bill, and it makes a whole lot more sense that way.
I find it interesting that for the last month we've been peppered with a lot of campaign ads saying that it's outside money that wants to change the Constitution, when it's really outside money that doesn't want it changed. And there's a reason why they don't want it changed. We're a very conservative state. And there's an outside influence that wants to make us more liberal, change things beyond, say, recreational marijuana to raising the minimum wage to a living wage, which sounds nice until you look at the fact your pizza is going to be $30, or to force us into electric vehicles like they do in California, or to change the way we vote for primaries. In California, it is a runoff primary. So you might be in the general looking for 2 Republicans or 2 Democrats. You don't get a choice between parties. It's called ranked voting, and that's something that they want to do here in Ohio. Well, if we're going to do that, if we're going to change it, we need a strong voice of Ohioans that say, yes, I agree with it. And 60% is a stronger voice than 50%. So I think this is the right time for this. And I'd also like to add, this is not the first time Ohio thought about doing this. In 2015, there was a bipartisan group that looked at our Constitution and said, this is way too easy. We've got to do some changes to it to make sure that things that go in the Constitution are what needs to be in the Constitution. And I don't know the reason why it never got off the ground, but now it is off the ground. And so that's what folks are going to be deciding on August 8th.
Well, you know, it's interesting because 32 states do not even allow for amendments to their Constitution. It's in concrete, that's it, you don't mess with it. But yet, it's interesting, you mentioned the 2015 bipartisan, but suddenly it became more partisan, and we can look at California's example of that. And the simple fact is, whether it was all the different props that came up, the referendums, and it became much more, we're going to do a mob rule. And California's gone down the road to California, we know where that's at. You know, what is it, the joke the other day is San Francisco's moving to Texas. You know, I mean, even San Francisco City, because you don't want to walk around there because of what they've done to their own area. We want to protect that and slow it down, think it through. And one of the good parts about a constitutional republic is we should be deliberative. In the House, you're deliberative. In the Senate, you're deliberative. You want to work through these. And that's part of what the 60% does. We really need to think this through, not just be swayed, as the founding fathers said, that mob vote that can get you in a lot of trouble, as we see in California. So let's look at what it takes to really think these things through, and 60% is a good start towards that.
Plus the 88 counties having a voice before we even get it on the ballot. And the fact that when you turn in your petitions by the deadline to turn them in, that they're absolutely correct. I don't get a do-over. No one else in Ohio that's in political office, even for a precinct position, gets a do-over. Right. And yet, for something that will enshrine itself in the Constitution, it gets a do-over.
Well, I think it was you the other night that was talking, and you had made a comment, how many times Ohio's Constitution has been changed?
Wow, oh yeah.
They say since 1851, you're talking over 150 times at this point. And a lot of those, again, you don't need to be changing it. The federal Constitution has been changed 27 amendments, the first 10 of which came in the Bill of Rights. So we've only changed it really 17 times since we've had it. That's because as a constitutional republic, those are your core values. You don't want to change those. We're not changing freedom of speech. We don't want to change access to worship or ability to worship or, search and seizure. How about Second Amendment? We like those issues. And if we leave it at 50% in this Constitution in Ohio, there are already efforts out there. We're hearing chatter about it. People who want to come in, as Representative Schmidt said, things like, and simple as, raising this wage and changing the prices of it and changing the values. Well, that has a catastrophic effect on our economy. Imagine your small business, you're charging now $20, $25 an hour, you have to pay for anybody. And then look at other things that can come in from Second Amendment issues to say, well, maybe it's 10 rounds. Who needs more than 10 rounds? Well, okay, that now changes your guns, what you have available, and we start going down the road of California. That is not what we want to do. And part of protecting our Constitution is raising that threshold to 60%. And as you said, making sure the voices of every county are actually heard, rather than just a couple of core counties and getting signatures out of those and then running off to Columbus to try to get something on the ballot. Everybody should be able to participate.
Well, let's back up a second. You hit something that resonated with me real well right here was the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Can they come in and decide we don't want the constitutional carry now and put it up before a vote? Is it something they can do, come in and say, we don't think that Ohio should have concealed carry laws?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Legislators only can create legislation until it is changed. Once it's in the Constitution, we can't change it.
Right.
So you can have folks that come in and say, there's no constitutional carry, there's no concealed carry. And as Charles said, limiting the amount of ammunition that you can buy. Those are the things that can happen. In voting, right now, we do not have mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots means they mail everybody a ballot and then hope when it comes back that you are legally allowed to vote. Instead of an absentee ballot where you have to apply for it and you're vetted. That's another thing that they want to come in here and do. And they're looking at Ohio to be able to change the reflection of this state, which is a conservative state, to make it a more liberal state.
Right. Like I say, I'm glad you pointed that out because, we already have a month of voting. You can go get your absentee ballot, and there's some flexibility that's needed because if they're on election day, there can be situations that occur. And let's face it, the folks who are actually working the polls on election day, they probably want to vote early. And encourage people to reach out to the Board of Elections if you're willing to work at a polling place. It is desperately needed, so please do that. But the other part to that is when it comes back to this polling place and being there and lowering standards so that, well, let's just put it this way. If mail-in ballots come in and you can just send them out anywhere, you're going to see a couple of cemeteries that are some of our highest turnout voting places. We've seen that across the country in other states.
Wow. I mean, there's a whole lot to this thing, and I can see why people are confused on it. The thing that I keep telling everybody is read it, talk to people, ask questions. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, this is affecting our kids, this is affecting our community, this is affecting us.
Well,
And-
and to your point, we don't have to pass it to learn what's in it. We
Right,
can actually
right,
read it
right.
beforehand.
Exactly.
And it's literally a half a page.
Yeah.
Take the time to read it, and we,
Well, that's because the legislature wrote it.
that's, yeah, straightforward, simple, and there's a degree to which, and I appreciate this effort, which is you bring things out of the legal terminology, and the legislature's done this. Bring it down so it's everyman language. We can understand it and read it. That cuts through that fog of confusion.
Well, let's talk about voter turnout. Both of you have brought up a lot of good points about this, and let's run with it for a minute, Jean. Let's
Well,
talk about voter turnout.
You know, we've seen a lack of enthusiasm in many elections for voter turnout, whether it is a special election or a primary election or even a non-presidential election. We have the opportunity as citizens of the United States and of Ohio to vote, and yet only about 50% of us are even registered to vote, and another 50% even show up. We're looking at this election as to having a turnout of maybe 10 to 15% to decide something so serious as changing the Constitution, and whether you're for the change or against the change. You need to come out and make your voice heard. That's what a constitutional republic / democracy is all about.
You know, I was always touched by, I remember back when the news was covering when the Iraqis first got to vote, and they would hold up their thumb where it was dyed, you know, to show that they voted. And it was just, to me, it was like, we've become so comfortable, so apathetic, we don't realize, not only, I mean, it's a privilege and honor to live here. But with that privilege and honor comes some responsibilities, and it's our civic responsibility to engage. That's one of the things we encourage it from, you know, the churches, telling their folks to get out to vote. Just make sure you're telling your neighbors. Kids, as your kids turn 18, get them registered to vote, because they're going to be looking to parents, and that's not always taught in school how to do it.
Right.
So we need to make sure we're educating on that side of things, and just encourage the turnout. This will be a low turnout election, and it shouldn't be. Every election should be 100%, and we just encourage everybody to come out and vote.
And for the folks that are not registered, unfortunately, you can't vote in this election, but we have an election coming up in November, and that's a pretty serious election as well, because that's your local races, which really will affect you the most dramatically. That's your school board, that's your township trustees, that's your village council races, plus a municipal court race. I believe that everybody should be engaged in those. Look at the candidates, see who you want to support, but you have to be a registered voter to be able to do that. So right around October 1st is going to be the cutoff. I'm not quite sure the date, but if you're not registered, you can download the application, mail it into the Board of Elections, and you'll be registered. It's that easy.
It is. And if you have questions, you can always go to the local Board of Election. They are happy to walk you through, you know, bring a good government ID, but they'll walk you through the process, and they are excellent about helping out anytime. So I highly encourage that.
Well, we've been hit with a lot here, but I do believe read it, let your conscience be your guide, and tell your family, read this bill, get out. Let's get some people out there to help support this. Charles, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I will make this comment. I appreciate Friends of Liberty and the voter integrity effort that you and Jean worked on even December of last year, making sure that when we vote in Ohio, it's one vote per person. We're actually getting out there and we're getting our votes in, and that you're tracking them properly so that to really minimize any kind of fraud. So I appreciate both of you.
I want to add to that, because it was an individual in Friends of Liberty by the name of Calvin Pauley
Yes. Yep.
that brought to my attention, we now in Ohio require you to have a voter ID with your picture on it. So it's your driver's license, or you can get an Ohio card, no charge.
Right.
But Calvin came to me and said, well, what about those that are legal citizens that get a driver's license? How are we going to know whether they're a citizen or not? So now when you go and get your next driver's license renewed or your Ohio ID, if you are a non-citizen but you are legally here, it will have an NC on your card so that the folks at the Board of Elections know that you are a citizen, welcome to the club, let's have fun, but you can't vote. And it was one person that brought that to my attention. And it was our legislature that said, this is terrific, let's do it.
Yep.
And the Secretary of State said, absolutely, Frank LaRose was in total agreement.
Yep.
Well, with that being said, I want to invite everybody to the Friends of Liberty United meetings. We're going to put my email address up at the end of this so you can contact me and I can tell you time and dates, but it's 7 o'clock, the fourth Monday of every month. And we've been meeting at the House of Restoration on State Route 131 in Milford. We always have candidates such as Gene and Charles and some other the county commissioners and people that are running for school boards. We ask them to come and we give them a platform to speak as well. I think if you would attend the meeting, you'll get a lot more education than you can imagine. So we want to invite you to that. Now this month, because of the Clermont County Fair, we're doing it the last Monday of the month at 7 p.m. And we're going to put my email address on there, so if there's any questions or anything, that I'll be happy to answer. But please get with friends and family, tell them to read this bill, tell them to get out and vote, talk to people, be an advocate. And I just want to thank Charles. Charles, I'm expecting a lot of great things from the Republican Party under your watch. And Gene, as always, you always stand on the right side of an issue, and that's why I support you.
Well, thank you so much. And I think Friends of Liberties is a welcome addition to this county.
Absolutely.
But we appreciate everybody. Thank you for being here today, and goodbye.